Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Mr. Neffinger, thank you for being here. Mr. Neffinger, as you know, I represent Georgia, and of course, Hartsfield-Jackson Airport, one of the busiest airport in the world, this is a major problem, the backlog that we have there. In fact, I just stepped outside a few minutes ago to have a picture taken with some visitors from Georgia, and they were telling me this morning, that, you know, one of them commented, I only had to wait 30 minutes in line. Well, you know, it's unacceptable what's happening here, and I just want to make sure that we're on the same page here. At Hartsfield, recently they've just opened up the South Checkpoint and started using a new system, the radio frequency identification on the bins, so that they can put their stuff in there and they don't have to load the bins. Hopefully that's going to help some. You and I have spoken before about privatization, and as you know, in full disclosure, I'm really big on privatization. Atlanta and the bigger airports are indicating to us, or at least to me, that it's beyond the scope of a bureaucracy to be able to do this. And I just don't get a warm and fuzzy feeling that you're embracing privatization here. Congress passed the Screening Partnership Program. Tell me what you're doing to implement that. We need to get to a point where you're on the other side of the table. You're asking the questions and overseeing this, as opposed to being here answering the question from us.
We've made a lot of changes to streamline that process. I was concerned that it takes a long time because it has to go out on bid, has to go out on contract, and the like. I have said repeatedly that the law allows for this. I will work with any airport that's interested. In fact, I have directed airports like Atlanta to go out and talk to San Francisco, because that's the only large, Category X airport that has a contracted screening force, and we'll continue to work with them. I think that there are things that we can do. We are somewhat hampered by the way the federal acquisition rules work. Remember, that's a workforce that's contracted to the federal government. Not to the
hold on,
airport.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but I want to know, you say you're hampered. I want to know how I can help you to become unhampered.
Well, as I said, we follow the contracting rules under the federal government contracting requirements. It's a contract to the federal government, so I want to make sure that it's fair and it's open competition, and you have to give people the opportunity to participate in that. We'll work with anybody who wants to do that.
Well, understand that I want to work with you so that we can streamline that process. I still don't get the feeling that you're embracing it, and I want to know what you're doing to encourage it, the privatization of it.
Well, again, it's up to the airport to determine whether they want to do it. We advertise its availability. We make available information about it. There's a screening private partnership office that manages that. What I can offer you is to bring the person who's running that office up to outline what's changed over the past year, and what we do to make that information available to airports if they're interested and inclined.
Okay, a couple other things real quick. First of all, as you know, FLETC is in my district.
Yes,
that's
sir.
where you do your training. I think it's a great facility, does a wonderful job of training. We still incorporate that, even in the private sector. I mean, they can still be trained down there. And I
train the private screeners as well.
Absolutely.
FLETC.
Absolutely. So, it's not as if they're not going to get the same kind of training that we currently get for the employees. It's just going to be management. And it appears to me, by the conversations that I've had with some of the smaller airports, that that's where the problem is, that there's a void, a gap, if you will, between the local senior TSA reps and between the management up here in D.C., that they're not communicating. Can you speak to that?
You mean the FSDs in the field?
Yes.
Well, I felt that the same thing. That's why I've made some leadership changes and some structural changes to the way we do it, and I've pushed a lot of authority out to the FSDs. They already had that authority, in my opinion. They just needed to know that they could use that authority, and I've been trying to drive less operations from headquarters, because you can't drive operations from a headquarters. You got to provide guidance and resources.
Absolutely. I'm glad to hear you say that. Yeah. But again, I feel like what's happening here is we're creating this giant bureaucracy that at some point we're not going to be able to ever break it down. And now's the time for us to start going more toward privatization so that we don't get this giant bureaucracy that obviously is not performing to the level that we want it to perform to. You know, one of the first things they taught us when we got in the Georgia legislature was, when you're in a hole, stop digging. And we need to stop digging because it ain't working the way it's working now. So I encourage you to look at this privatization and to push the privatization. That's the route that I would see us needing to go.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.